All right. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. Thank you, or I guess it's afternoon. Good afternoon. And thank you for joining us virtually today. My name is Taylor Alawi, and on behalf of Atmosphere Press, I am as pleased as always to introduce you to today's author event. We will be highlighting three books, and I'm sure from this really diverse spread, you'll be able to find something for everyone in your family. So today we will be hearing from Nathaniel S. Johnson, reading from the novel Phoebe and Fred, released November 22nd, 2022. Brian Sullivan, reading from Lilah Loves Life, a children's picture book released December 1st, 2022. And Paul Dunion, EDD, reading from My Days with Emma, a memoir that was released January 21st, 2023. All three authors' books can be purchased both from online retailers and from select bookstores. And of course, you can order the books on Atmosphere Press's website at atmospherepress.com/books. Please see the links in the chat. At the end of today's event, we will have time for audience questions. So during the readings, if you have a question for one or more of our authors, you can type it in the chat and I will make sure it gets asked. And then during the actual reading itself, please be sure to stay muted just so we can keep extraneous sound at a minimum. Of course, you can certainly use the chat the entire time for any praise and comments. And one last note is that we at Atmosphere Press appreciate your support today and always. If you have a manuscript of your own, we would love to read it, so feel free to submit your work to books@atmospherepress.com. Again, thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon and supporting Nat, Brian, and Paul. Let's start off with our first reader, who is Nathaniel S. Johnson. Nat is a veteran American radio broadcaster and record producer. At WGBH Radio and TV, Mr. Johnson supervised sound recordings for radio and TV drama, plus recordings of live broadcasts by the Boston Symphony and Boston Pops orchestras. He collaborated with Alistair Cooke on various public TV programs and recorded Cooke's Letter from America for broadcast on the BBC. As an audio designer for WGBH radio drama, Mr. Johnson produced Heracles by Archibald MacLeish, an experimental radio drama in quadraphonic sound. Nat was appointed head of reissues at RCA Records in New York, where he supervised remastering the 64 CD Grammy Award-winning Heifetz collection. Later, he was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Historical Album as producer for a 94 CD set, the Rubenstein Collection for RCA Red Seal. Mr. Johnson's works have appeared in Alien Skin, Boston Literary Magazine, Writer's Stories, SNM Horror Magazine, The Wildering Stories First Quarterly Review 2010, The Foundling Review, Everyday Fiction, and Absent Willow Review. His forthcoming book, a short story collection called One Before Bedtime, will be released by Atmosphere Press on May 9th, 2023. Visit www.natjohnsonauthor.com for more information. Today, in Nat's novel, Phoebe and Fred, it had been an uneventful summer, but by mid-morning, the serene country village of Harmony would be plunged into chaos and controversy. The Watson family, preparing breakfast, were startled by angry protests from an old sports car at the back of their house, starting, stalling, and starting again. In Phoebe and Fred, Nat ushers readers into the extraordinary realm of basset hounds and displays how these uncommonly intelligent and affectionate animals might coax unsuspecting humans into their domain. And with that, Nat, it's all you. Oh, sorry, Nat, it looks like you are muted, so. See, it should be the button at the bottom of the screen.
How is that now?
All right, there you are. We can hear you.
Okay. Phoebe and Fred. Chapter 1. Dangers Ahead. There was no forewarning of impending trouble on this muggy July morning. The village of Harmony, hushed and still and drowning in dreams, dozed, stirred, groaned, and turned over. Rising sunbeams pierced the damp ocean fog, igniting shops, docks, steeples, and rows of white clapboard colonials lining narrow streets, crooked brick lanes, and jolting cobblestone streets. Soon, warming air and gentle sea breezes would rouse even the most slumberous, like languorous cats ready for feeding. Departing Morgan's Wharf, the first trawler, escorted by a chorus of seagulls, churned out of the harbor. Soon, risers will descend upon Melanie's harbor side on the pier for breakfast and gossip. It has been an uneventful summer, but all of Harmony would be plunged into chaos and controversy by mid-morning. Up in One Harmony Lane, high on a hill a few miles from town, the Watson family gathered to cook breakfast, unaware of the uproar about to unfold. In the kitchen, hanging over an enormous blue Aga stove, steel skillets and copper pans bathed in a bevy of changing colors from tubes of luminous light streaming through a large stained glass window. The room bloomed with rainbows. Henry and Miranda Watson bustled about preparing hot cereal, homemade bread, and fresh orange juice. At the same time, 11-year-old daughter Lydia spooned coffee beans into an electric grinder and waited for the kettle to whistle. A thump at the back door announced 10-year-old Lewis, fresh from harvesting blueberries in the backyard, as he rushed breathlessly into the kitchen. Anyone seen Phoebe or Fred? Didn't they go out with you? Tall with red hair and ringlets and tinted in a flowing purple smock, Miranda Watson glided over to a kitchen cabinet, fetched a serving spoon and bowls, and returned to stir a steaming pot of hot, spicy oatmeal on the stove. No, haven't seen them. Lewis, tanned beneath his striped jersey and summer shorts, plunked a wooden pail filled with berries onto a counter. Henry Watson, unshaven and tousled and wrapped in his ratty chef's apron, sat down at the table to butter the toast. Maybe they're still asleep. Lydia, freckled with a slightly sunburned forehead and still in her pink animal-decorated bathrobe, stopped the grinder, cupped her heads and shouted, "Phoebe, Fred!" No response. "Breakfast now!" She waited. For a moment, all was still until suddenly, from outside at the back of the house, they heard the angry protest of an aged automobile's stubborn engine, starting, stopping, starting, stalling, and turning over again. "My Jag!" Henry threw his hands into the air as the family rushed to a window to gawk at Henry's Jaguar XK120 Roadster, now halfway down the driveway, jerking, stopping, bouncing, spewing plumes of blue exhaust, and kicking up clouds of brown dust. Henry rushed out of the house. "Stop! Stop! Stop!" Henry's apron flew up over his head like a great sail, his arms flailing in vain at the vanishing vehicle. At this hour, several miles down the backshore road, Lilah Farnsworth, 82 and solitary in her remote beach cottage, had finished a breakfast of yogurt, melon, and a cup of saffron tea. After drying the dishes, she'll stop outside to scrub the front porch, cuss the seagulls for messing her patio, then hasten back indoors to compose a grocery list. Like most harmoniums, what the natives dubbed themselves, Lilah shopped locally, shunning the hassle of crowded summer towns across the bay. Harmoniums savored their island's seclusion, safe, quiet, respectable, and amicably divorced from the mainland by a single bridge few ever found good reason to cross. Shopping list completed, walking shoes secured, sunglasses donned, and shoulder bag hoisted, Lilah stepped out, and after taking one glance to see all was tidy, snapped the gate shut and marched down her driveway towards town. On the far end of the island, Henry Watson's stolen Jaguar came to a brief stop, and with the engine still revving, spun about and picked up speed on its return into the village. Down on Morgan's Wharf, The sun warmed a weather-beaten wooden sign on a steaming coffee cup hanging over the entrance to Melanie's Harborside. Melanie Maloney, hot, red-haired and huffy, stepped out of her car and, after cursing the seagulls for crapping on her Bayview window, opened the front door, switched on overhead lights and fans, let out a long sigh, and braced for the early crowd. For a few moments, all was silent. Then, a knock on the door. "Hey!" Todd Dunn, Melanie's chief chef and dishwasher, poked his smiling, freckled face through the doorway. "Morning, Todd. Do me a favor?" "Your wish is my command." Melanie pointed to the bay window. "Our earliest arrivals." Todd gazed over at the green and white splotched mess sliding down the window. "Bonus in my paycheck?" "Same as always." Shopping completed and weary from the rising heat, Lilah Farnsworth trudged homeward, hugging a heavy bag of groceries, unaware of the approaching encounter. Lilah always hiked to town, winter and summer, maintaining that exercise at 82 kept her fit, sane, and regular. Flying down the road, spewing blue exhaust and splashing through roadside puddles while accelerating well over the posted speed limit, the rushing Jaguar gained on the unsuspecting Lilah. At the wheel was neither a racing driver, nor a licensed driver, nor even a member of the human genus. For this heedless motorman and his joyful companion sitting in the passenger seat beside him were both Basset hounds. Reveling in their first solo automobile, they tested hairpin curves at reckless rates, honking at the car's sharp horn at every turn, while the Jag picked up heavy clouds of dust in its wake. Fred, the driver, a large red Basset, wearing racing goggles and a houndstooth cap, raised his nose high into the air and bayed, his long ears flapping in the tornado tearing over the windshield. Beside Fred sat Phoebe, a more miniature tricolor Basset wearing a white tip on her tail, likewise wearing goggles, yowling with glee, gripping the passenger door with her forepaws whenever they tore around a sharp bend in the road. "Music!" howled Phoebe. "Play the music!" Abruptly, Fred lurched forward and, with his snout, triggered the CD player mounted on the dashboard, launching a blast of Beethoven while both Bassets bayed out of tune to the music being sung by a children's chorus. "Joyful, loyal, playful Bassets, we all love the Basset hounds. Fresh of friends with kindest assets, they will never let you down. Short on legs, but not in spirit, Bassets will bring you heaps of fun. Give them treats of tasty fillet while they lap in morning sun." Lilah Farnsworth stopped to catch her breath. Her groceries were heavy and the heat was intolerable. Hoisting the bag across her sweaty chest and struggling up the hill toward her driveway, she jumped at the threatening snarl of an approaching sports car and the howl of hounds mixed with a chorus from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony bearing down upon her. As the rumpus roared past, Lilah shrieked in terror. Moments later, with the noise faded and the dust settled, there lay at her feet one split open bag of ground coffee, swimming in a puddle of broken eggs and a leaking carton of milk. Lilah's brand new suede walking shoes were ruined, drenched in liquid food. Farther down the road, Farmer Dave McGuire had barely opened the gate in his north pasture when he heard the ruckus. Astonished by the approaching spectacle, he pulled a straw hat down over his moon-like face and ducked as the Jaguar rumbled past, showering him with ragweed, dust, and road cinders. Straightening up, his face peppered in brown sprinkles, his hat blown cockeyed, he gaped at the retreating Jaguar, tearing up a steep roadway marked Harmony Lane, narrowly missing a mailbox labeled the Watsons, and vanished into a pine grove. Dumbfounded, McGuire took a few moments scratching his chin, drew the hat back over his sunburned head, and loped back towards the farmhouse to make an urgent phone call into town. The news grew swift legs. Throughout the morning, while harmoniums crowded into Melanie's harborside, claiming their purchase in booths at the counter or tables beside a bay view window overlooking the waterfront, Melanie claimed she could set her watch by their arrivals. The early gossipers at 8, grumps, cranks, chinwaggers by 9, town workers and regulars around 10. Arriving promptly at 8 was Paula Pettit, Harmony's sole female letter carrier, a sumptuous blonde with dappled cheeks, bright blue eyes, and a romantic soul, steadfastly single and perpetually on a diet. Paula dropped her heavy mailbag, taking her customary seat at the counter with a good view of Todd in the kitchen. Morning, Melanie. Hi, Todd. Melanie set down a glass of water. Gonna be a warm one. Make me an iced coffee, okay, hon? And I'll take one of those blueberry pancakes, but only a teeny tiny bit of that yummy creamy butter. I'm on a diet, you know. Paula winked. There was rejoicing and relief at 1 Harmony Lane as Henry's overheated Jaguar, cargo intact, finally ran out of fuel and sputtered to a steaming stop at the top of the driveway. The Watsons rushed over to help both Bassetts disembark. Why? Why did you drive off? Henry shouted, snatching Fred's driving cap after first running around his cars, searching for damage. Aside from surface mud and dust, there was none. Miranda unsnapped Phoebe's goggles and helped her out the passenger side door. Where did you go? Phoebe's response was to lick Miranda's hand, and when Henry opened the driver's door, Fred hopped out, his tail wagging like a windshield wiper. Lydia knelt beside Fred. Tell us what you want. Fred responded with an irritated woof. What's wrong? Lewis said. Hungry, Fred grumbled, pushing his snout into Lewis's stomach. Food, Phoebe howled, trotting toward the house. Feed hungry hounds. Lydia put her hand to her ear. Must be hard of hearing. Won't tell us where they went. Miranda glared at her husband. Henry, this was all your doing. Ignoring Miranda's reproach, Henry stood staring at Fred, hands on hips. So how did you start the car? Fred sat in wide-eyed silence, head cocked. Typical, Miranda said, pretending they don't understand. Henry grinned. Well, they knew how to get back home. Dad? Henry held up the driving goggles. How on earth did they get these on? Never mind, said Miranda, pushing Lewis and Henry towards the house. Everyone come in now or breakfast will be all cold. By 10:30, more regulars arrived at Melanie's, joining arguments over the errant Bassetts and Henry's runaway Jaguar. At 11 sharp, Kyle Ketchum, Harmony sheriff, part-time patrol officer and keeper of the lockup, ambled in, waved to Todd in the kitchen, nodded to the others, and assumed his usual place at the counter next to a wicker basket brimming with pastries. I'll have me an egg salad sandwich, whole wheat toasted, hold the mayo. Melanie sighed. Always the same. Best egg salad in town, hun, Kyle said. Hoping Melanie was not looking, he snatched a croissant. And stop eating those buns, you'll ruin your appetite. Oh, for heaven's sake. Well, somebody has to look after you, Mr. Constable, said Melanie, wagging an admonishing finger. Portly and florid, sporting a shirt, white beard, and a wavy gray hair, he looked more like an aging hippie than a sheriff. But Kyle Ketchum was a sharp cop who took no guff. And no one ever tried to put one over on him. Paula swiveled on her sail, grinning. Hey, Kyle, is it against the law for dogs to drive cars? Kyle sighed and shook his head. Don't know if dogs can drive, Paula, he said, biting into another bun. Sort of like whether pigs can fly, eh? Todd Dunn poked his freckled face out from the kitchen window. Lilah phoned town hall, said Watson's Bassetts nearly ran her over. Now, is that possible? Paula winked. You know Henry fixed up his Jag for his dogs to drive, Todd returned Paula's wink. Kyle gazed about the room. So who was driving? Hogwash, detonated Bud Newman, town grouch from his corner booth, where he ate his breakfast every morning in sullen solitary. That's the third time I've heard about Dog driving nonsense, he growled, slamming his newspaper down on the table. Bud Newland, a formidable lawyer and chair of Harmony's town council, was a small man with a short fuse and notable for his flushed red face wherever he got angry. Ever since the Watson moved into that horror of a house on Harmony Lane, Bud had complained about this family, who seemed to think their damn dogs deserved more than regular folks. Melanie stepped out of the kitchen. Dave McGuire saw them, and they were going way over the speed limit. Did anyone phone the police? Kyle winked at Paula. Nuts! Bud Newland jumped up, fessant with rage. He strode out of the room and slapped a bill down on the cash register. You're all nuts. Moments later, the door slammed behind him. The Watsons were finishing breakfast when the phone rang. Henry got up to answer. Hi, Todd, what's up? Henry, were you out with your Bassets in your Jag this morning? Henry switched on the speakerphone. They got away from me and went solo. The whole town's talking, Lilah called town hall, crying how they nearly ran her over. Henry beckoned Miranda to the phone. She okay, Todd? Nobody got hurt, did they? They just missed her. Dave McGuire saw them too. Henry cleared his
All
throat.
right, I'm just going to cut in there, Nat, because I want to make sure we have enough time for all of the readers. But thank you so much. Yeah, we're about a little over 15. So I just want to say that broadcaster voice really came through well during your reading. So that's fantastic. And also I can really see I just can picture my whole family sitting around at the holidays and one person's reading this out loud. It's just so fun and such a great way for the family to laugh together. So thank you so much, Nat.
You're welcome.
Yeah, of course. Reading next today is Brian Sullivan. Brian is currently enjoying retirement with his wife, Kathy, in suburban Chicago after almost 35 years in legal publishing as an editor and writer. Now that he has the time and 3 grandkids, he has been indulging his longtime desire to write books that young children can enjoy and learn from. He hopes to continue pursuing this passion and to encourage youngsters to develop a love of reading. In Brian's second children's book, Lilah, with her sunny outlook and cheerful disposition, approaches each day as a gift, and she's determined to make the most of every one of them. And although she enjoys life's simple pleasures, she also has high expectations about how she will make her mark in the world. As Brian reads today, I will be screen sharing the illustrations from Lilah Loves Life. So Brian, I'll open it up and you can take it away. Oh, you might have to unmute Brian before we get started.
Fell into the same trap, didn't I? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Hala. I have 2 books here. The first one is Lilah Loves Life. And this was inspired by my granddaughter, Lilah, who indeed does love life. She takes joy in just about everything she does. And that made such an impression on me. And that I thought I need to capture this somehow. And this is the result. This is actually a companion piece to my previous book, Bo Wants to Know, which is about my grandson, Bo. So, and I have a 3rd grandchild named Dylan, so this is likely to be a trilogy. Anyway, I'll start to read from Lilah Loves Life. I'll be able to read the whole thing within my allotted time, so here we go. Well, that looks very good, Hala. Thank you. Lilah woke up and looked out at the sky, so blue and so clear with some clouds floating by. She decided to count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh my, Lilah said, it's so great to be alive. There are so many things I can do with my day. I can dance, I can sing, I can laugh, I can play. But before she went outside, she had to be smart and have a good breakfast to get a good start. Lilah's favorite breakfast was yogurt and fruit, and her chef outfit made her look ever so cute. She dreamed about working in a restaurant someday, where she could chop and stir and peel and saute. She would make people happy by serving good food, so that when they were finished, they'd be in a good mood. I might be a chef when I'm older, she said. It's one of the dreams that I have in my head. When breakfast was over, it was time to go out and see what this brand new day was about. Lilah saw a butterfly in her mom's flower bed. I'm going to catch it in my new net, she said. But it fluttered and flitted and flew very far until she caught it and put it in a little glass jar. You're so beautiful, she said, but I'm setting you free. You belong to everyone. That's the way it should be. Next, Lilah decided to look for some chalk and draw squares for hopscotch out on the front walk. As she hopped and scotched from square to square, her imagination took her far away from there. Look at me, I'm a ballerina in a ballet. People come to see me day after day. I know I can do it, and I'll tell you why. Because nothing can stop me if I really try. Then Lilah went to her backyard to play. I'll make bubbles, she said, and watch them float away. The bubbles she made were so light and so airy, she imagined that some of them contained a small fairy. Go, she said, drift away over the trees, fly over houses and ride on the breeze. Sprinkle your fairy dust every which way to make sure that everyone has a good day. Now Lilah was thinking of more ways to have fun. She said, I'll play t-ball and hit a home run. As she held up her bat to swing, she could hear the crowd in her mind that was starting to cheer. Her bat knocked the ball clear over the fence. The crowd went wild, the applause was intense. I'd like to find out, she said, how it would feel to someday be able to do that for real. What a great morning, but Lilah had a hunch it was just about time to go in and have lunch. While eating her sandwich and drinking her drink, she had some spare time to ponder and think. What shall I do with the rest of my day? Where can I go? What can I play? She could hardly wait to go back out and see how much more fun this great day could be. After lunch, Lilah thought maybe she might enjoy this breezy day by flying a kite. She ran back and forth till the wind took it high, and soon it became a small speck in the sky. Ooh, she said, I can't believe what I've done. It looks like it's up there right next to the sun. It's up there so high like it's one of the birds. Flying my kite is just too fun for words. When the kite came back down, Lilah put it away and thought about what else to do with her day. I've got it, she said. I know just the thing. I'm going to reach for the sky on my swing. As she kicked out her legs to go higher and higher, she noticed a bird's nest with one little flyer. Go, little bird, she said, jump off and soar. There's a whole world out there for you to explore. Lilah's day had been busy, but she wasn't done yet. She brought out a ball to play fetch with her pet. She held out her arm and then started to throw, but held on to the ball and watched her dog go. He ran at full speed and looked up for the ball, but stopped and looked around when he didn't see it fall. I have it right here, she said. I didn't throw it. Then she giggled and laughed because the dog didn't know it. This day filled with playing was about to wind down, and the thought made her sad, but rather than frown, Lilah decided to turn on the hose and run through the sprinkler while still in her clothes. It felt cool and refreshing, like eating freezer pops. She stuck out her tongue and tried catching some drops. She was thoroughly soaked and her face had a grin. So she turned off the hose. It was time to go in. As she put on her PJs and finished her dinner, Lilah kept thinking this day was a winner. "It's not over yet," she said. "What shall I do? I still have some time before this day is through." She pulled out a puzzle and spread it on the table, but her eyes got so heavy that she just wasn't able. Mom and Dad picked her up and brought her to bed, and each gave a kiss to their little sleepyhead. Lilah was ready to drift off to slumber, but first she was trying to think of the number of ways she had found to enjoy her day. Each one was a gift in its own special way. "I enjoyed them all," she said, "every single one. I hope that tomorrow will be just as much fun. I wish I could give the whole world a high five, so everyone would know that it's great to be alive." The end.
Thank you so much, Brian. I feel like the brightness of Lilah and these illustrations is really just infectious. I mean, I know it's a book and it's a small page in front of you, but you can really feel it coming out at you.
And
Um,
I certainly appreciate the fact that you held up the art so that everyone can see, because the illustrator that I was fortunate to get, Laura Watson, did such a super job, and it just brings the whole thing alive, in my opinion. And thank you so much for showing it.
yeah, of course, I'd want everyone to experience
Yeah,
those for sure.
yeah.
And of course, for everyone in the audience, if you're ever looking for a present for a child, a grandchild, niece, nephew, whoever it may be, definitely check out that link in the chat. And our final reader for today is Paul Dunion. Paul is a teacher, author, and psychological healer committed to remaining mindful of life as a mysterious and unpredictable journey. A steadfast believer in the power of community, Paul founded Boys to Men, a mentoring program for teenage boys, and Comega, the semi-annual Connecticut men's gathering, now in its 30th year of service. Paul currently is a senior faculty with Mobius Executive Leadership and teaches at Mobius's Next Practice Institute. Storytelling, facilitating, and writing are some of Paul's strongest gifts. He regularly contributes to various online platforms. My Days with Emma, A Soulful Path to Elderhood, is his 7th book. Paul lives in Eastern Connecticut with his wife, Connie, and dog, Cody. My Days with Emma offers a touching and edifying portrayal of the author being mentored into elderhood. He is introduced to elderhood with its appropriate trials and ordeals. The power of being becomes a new way to see himself and life, releasing him from the need to prove something. And we'll hear more now from Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. This first piece got stimulated in me because listening to a young man recite a poem by Robert Frost, which was "Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening." The poem ends with Frost saying he had many promises to keep. But for the first time in my life, it dawned on me, I could make promises to life. And as an elder, it seems it's just so fitting. So this piece is called Some Elder Promises. I promise to surrender to something larger than myself. I promise to work toward holding the belief that life owes me nothing. I promise to continue living a self-examined life. I promise to bring compassion to what I discover about myself. I promise to employ my gifts in support of the empowerment of younger people. I promise to live my questions with the faith that more will be revealed. I promise to exercise my discernment in promoting what is truly sustainable. I promise to remain curious about what life is asking of me. I promise to pay attention to where I separate myself unnecessarily. I promise to return to unity consciousness whenever possible. I promise to pass on the encouragement and knowledge that was given to me. I promise to exercise the discernment needed to identify who truly wants my offering. I promise to serve. I promise to maintain an open and curious relationship with ambiguity. This next piece really comes out of what often is called active imagination, because it morphs into a conversation between me and my father, who had passed at the time. I watched you with eyes of the heart. You sat alone in the den, in that old beige chair, next to which a dim lamp appeared to struggle to shed enough light for reading. You sat night after night, your glasses tipped forward onto your nose, eyes peering down into an encyclopedia's version of history. Ancient times filled your heart, but there would be no books or education to bring a genuine historian into being. No, tethering patterns from the past would hold you to something much smaller. Your dream to take your place amongst those who would give voice to the human story would go unlived. You know how to tell a story. Moments after you began to speak, the bodies of the listeners would resonate with your words. It never felt like one man telling some narrative, as Eros filled the room with an enchantment, escorting everyone somewhere they had never been before. Everyone's eyes were enlarged with both gratitude and welcome for your story. You possessed the calling to be able to live in a story, and everyone knew it. What I never quite understood was why the same anticipation existed in your audience, even when they were about to hear a story they had heard before. What allowed you to transcend the ennui of redundancy? The image of you with your encyclopedia in hand, sitting under dim light, was burned into my soul. How could I save my father from the unlived life of his dreams? How could I save myself? I desperately convinced myself that I could live the dreams of two men. I look back now in the winter of my life and wonder, what was my dream? How could I know my dream from some borrowed sentiment? Maybe now dreams that preferred to be hidden dare to show themselves. I close my eyes now and I allow for a blend of honesty laced with enchantment to shape an image of a boy taking his father's hand as an encyclopedia falls gently in his lap. Come with me. I will live our dreams for both of us. That boy's manhood would be challenged to hold some measure of having done enough, of feeling he was enough. The voice of limitless striving was always close by, reminding him of his father's unlived dreams, never quite knowing when my dream had taken a full breath as the unlived in my father beckoned me. Two unwelcome gifts have helped me move closer to what is being asked of me, a pandemic and a suite of Meniere's symptoms. The combination has brought helplessness, vulnerability, and a pause that has my body regularly shedding tension. Has this tension been separating me from the voice of my soul? Or has it been the tremor hurrying me to the next moment where I hope to live enough dreams for two men? Could there be in every pause a quiet but salient welcome? In this pause, there is an image cradled in active imagination. I'm standing there at the chair, the one dimly lit with my father in his khaki trousers and a green and black flannel shirt. He holds my hand and says, I want you to let go now, Paulie. Do not look harshly upon these unlived dreams of mine, mine to embrace and feel. I'm the one who must listen to their voices. Unlived dreams are not simply a source of defeat. They can reveal unyielding fear and the narratives making it courageous to long for something larger. Unlived dreams are awaiting insemination from the Spirit. You have loved me dearly, and I ask you to love me now by allowing your limits to embrace your own dreams. I, as well as our ancestors, rest easy as you cease pushing life, allowing life to hold you the way it was always meant to be. Come to know this holding. You'll never find it in busy, for busy has you stepping just beyond life's enfolding immediacy. Move slowly, holding the faith that in the pause, an intimacy with life will be consummated. In each pause, find repose in your body. Only then will you be available to receive life gently revealing its mystery. You will no longer need to dismiss some subtle expression of the sublime. Life always had a dream that it wanted to live in you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I really believe in our society, that aging and elderhood is often viewed with something like fear. And I think the audience can really feel just from that short reading from you, your voice in the book it's calming, but it's intriguing. And I would say this is really just a great piece for anyone wanting any sort of guidance or just to kind of read a perspective from someone as they go into those golden years of their life. So thank you again so much. At this point, we have about 15 minutes for our audience Q&A. So if any of you have a question in the audience for one or more of our authors, go ahead and type those in the chat and I will make sure it gets asked. That goes for authors, all three of you. If you have questions for one another, feel free to also put those in the chat. Just to give some people some time to percolate and think up some questions. I do have one that I want to get us started off with. So this is a question for all three of you. Because for all of you, these specific books are not your sole venture into authorship or writing. So I'm just curious to hear from each of you what pushes you to keep writing. Maybe Paul, if you want to start us off. I know this is your seventh book, so very prolific authorship.
I think what pushes me into writing is things I don't truly understand. I came to realize I don't write about stuff I understand. I write about stuff that confuses me. So my writing is my way of exercising significant inquiry. Usually end up with more questions than I started. Yeah.
And I guess you could say that's a mark of good writing then. More questions, more to write about. Brian, any thoughts from you? What pushes you to keep writing? It's your second children's book, and of course you've done other writing before that as well. Oh, it looks like you are muted again, Brian.
Sorry.
The inevitable catch.
Yes. The writing I've done before this has been in my professional life, and that was satisfying, but not to the degree that this is. Contrary to Paul, I write about things that I do know. And these two books, Lilah Loves Life and the one I showed briefly earlier, Bo Wants to Know, were inspired by my grandkids, and I tried to figure out what they're about and what makes them tick, and I tried to really capture that and put it in book form so that it could be shared with the world at large, hopefully. And I find it very satisfying, especially when I can get an illustrator to bring it to life like I did. And so I plan to continue doing this type of writing, as I said, at least one more, and hopefully more after that, and then maybe perhaps branch into something a little different. But for now, this is what kind of drives me and gives me joy.
Oh, good. That's so wonderful to hear. And I sort of fall into your camp of writing from what you know, definitely. So I relate to that. Nat, what is it that pushes you to continue writing?
Well, I think that when I am not writing, which is seldom because I'm always jotting something down, putting ideas down on a notepad. I can't answer that question except to say that there are always, what usually gets me writing is what has moved me, motivated me more than anything before, anything recently. When I was young, I was lucky to be able to listen to Sunday afternoon dramas on the radio. They were really terrific in those days, with everything from I don't know, but Tom Sawyer and all kinds of things were dramatized. But one that moved me the most was, when I was little, was Orson Welles reading The Shadow. And there was a Sunday afternoon block of dramas and mystery stories that they put on the radio. And that really excites the imagination, because you're listening to someone and forming your own pictures. And I think that's what's wonderful about writing, is that you write your own story, but everyone else is going to have their own reading of how it goes. And I just think when I put out Phoebe and Fred, a woman from our village came up to me and she said, "Is this about Rockport?" And I said, "It's whatever you want it to be." And I think once I got onto that track, that this is going to be whatever you want it to be, you'll hear the sounds, your own sounds, you'll know what these people wear and all of that. I think that's what's just sort of, but I think it's an endless opportunity to express yourself, but to bring other people in with you.
Yeah, definitely. I love that imagination element, and my sister and I are always talking about that too. So yes, absolutely. We have another question for all three authors from KC. And this question is, how did you know writing was your calling in life? Switching it up a little bit, Brian, do you want to start us off with this one?
Well, I've always enjoyed writing, even as a kid, and I started to believe I was pretty good at it, and so it's something that just kind of comes naturally to me, and I just simply enjoy it, and I don't know. I guess it is my calling, because I get so much satisfaction out of it.
Yeah, I think that's the best possible thing that you could get out of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
If you're going to
yeah.
be doing it.
Mhm.
Going back to Nat, what was it that made you realize writing was your calling in life?
Well, it's interesting how I got that start. When I was a senior in high school, our English teacher had us write essays one day. And I still remember his name, and people that I know still remember his name, Mr. O'Connor. And when we all submitted our essays, he would read them, and then he'd hand them back to each of us. And he said, "Nat," he said, "you are a very good writer." And that always stuck with me. I don't know that necessarily motivated me, but it certainly gave me the encouragement to go forth and do whatever I want. And I never forget him saying that to me. "You're a great writer."
Yeah, those teacher moments, you're so right. I can think of several off the bat too. And finally, Paul, how did you know for yourself that writing was your calling in life?
I'm not sure I ever figured that out, actually. I think think what I did figure out was that I was raised by Celtic storytellers. And so the notion, and I've watched these storytellers love each other through story. So whether it was verbal story, and it dawned on me, I could write things that might also create conversations like those people did in my childhood.
Yeah, kind of a full circle moment almost. Yeah. So we have now a question for Brian specifically from Cam. Could you talk about the collaboration between the writing and the illustration? How did the writing and the art influence each other throughout that process?
Well, when I first, my illustrator, her name is Laura Watson. When I first saw her portfolio online, I knew immediately this is what my stories look like. Her artwork, I just knew it somehow. And so she graciously agreed to illustrate my books. And I would throw out ideas to her for each spread, each scenario, and she would throw ideas back to me, and then I would say, okay, make sure that it shows this, that, and the other thing, and the rest is up to you. And she would return something to me that was even better than I could have thought. And I thought, wow, it never occurred to me to put it from this angle or do that. And she added lots of little things in the background, and I thought this whole thing is really jumping off the page, and I just loved it. And so I would give her some not ground rules, but some guidelines for each spread, and she would enhance it. And so we made a very good team, I think, and that's how that worked.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the dream, right? To be able to almost like you are thinking something and they're already thinking it
Yeah,
and building on it. So,
that's what it was like.
oh, good.
Mhm.
Yeah, very exciting to hear, of course. We now have a question. This is from Jody to Paul. How do you balance your calling to write and the other healing work that you offer with the move to quote unquote being?
Oh, he's muted.
You asked that again?
Oh, yeah. I was saying this is a question from Jody to you, Paul.
Yeah.
How do you balance your calling to write and the other healing work that you offer with the move to being?
I have found that my work with people has always inspired my writing. I mean, the folks that have worked with me along the way, in one way or another, have found their way onto the pages that I write about. And then my writing actually informs me more about how I want to relate to people in general. Yeah. I think he mentioned being at the end, the power of being. Um, I think my writing helps me not to focus on outcomes so much. I noticed lately when I'm immersed in writing, it feels like the writing is addressing me. Like I have an intention to go somewhere, and it's almost like I can hear the voice of the writing go, no, 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 don't go that way, go this way. So there's something there about not being so attached to my intentional outcome.
Yeah, almost like the writing and your other work is really hand in hand. It's not necessarily just one or the other,
Yeah.
and maybe shouldn't be one or the other. We have a question. This is another question for all of the authors. This is from Casey to all three of you. What advice do you have for young writers? Nat, do you want to start us off with this one?
I would say, let yourself go. Do what you feel is what you are, not necessarily whether or not it has it's grammatically correct or the structure is right. If you feel it in your heart, just let it out, write it down, and you can always alter it later. I think it's very good. I tend to write when I'm motivated by something or someone, and I find that I can sit and write and write and write, and I've just looked back at that and say, wow, where did all that come from? I didn't have to think about it. I just felt it.
Yeah, definitely. Just let it out first and foremost, right? Paul, any advice from you for younger writers?
Yeah, I would simply say what has served me is really trusting when I'm touched and moved, and seeing it as something I should address, something I should follow up with. And it's inspired my writing a lot, to trust what touches and moves me.
Yeah, definitely, because you're going to have all of these feelings about it to share. So it totally makes sense. And Brian, any advice from you for younger writers?
I guess I guess I would say just write, no matter what it is. Just write about things. Do a lot of writing, and go back and read it and say, well, this doesn't I didn't get much here, but maybe something you did write about does kind of come to life for you, and then you'll know, oh, I I'm much better at writing about this sort of thing, and then you'll kind of hone that, and I think you'll get better and better. And that's my advice, is just keep writing and see what works for you.
Yeah, really. I mean, the repetition element cannot be overstated, at least in my opinion. So just doing it for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
We just have one last question that we'll close off our event with today. This is a question again for all three authors from Lilah. What inspires your writing? So for Brian, maybe what inspires your writing other than your grandchildren? And for Paul and Nat, what aspects of life maybe inspire your writing? Maybe just going back in the order we just did. Brian, do you want to kick us off with that one?
Oh, I like that the questioner's name is Lilah.
Yeah, it's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. What inspires, other than my grandchildren? Just trying to come up with a good story, trying to be descriptive and get and draw somebody into it. I do like writing for kids. Um, I'm not sure why, but I think I like the fact that I have three kids, and when they were little, I used to read to them all the time, whether it was books or the comics or anything, and I just liked how they enjoyed it, and I wanted to create something of myself, from myself, that kids could enjoy, no matter what the source of it was.
Yeah, definitely. Just that pure joy element. I mean, it must be really
Yes,
rewarding to see.
yeah, it is.
Paul, for you, what is it that, if you could boil it down to something, what is it that inspires your writing?
I think one of the most inspirational things for my writing is creating conversations. I mean, one of my prior books, a book club, was created around the book. And knowing that people were actually having conversations that served them in some meaningful way, that was very inspiring for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the amount of reward that must come from that, I mean, it must be incredible. So, and closing us out, Nat, what is it that inspires your writing?
Well, I think I don't know. Each day is a different day. I've just written a book about what I feel ought to be our future in terms of survival of our planet and survival of wildlife and all those creatures and all those people who have no um, control over what's happening. I want to say, I write about an episode that I saw, and I said, this is how this could be made better. I think preaching and teaching can be a little bit dangerous when you're writing a book for a large audience, but I'm going to start doing more of that now. I have theories about the future of our planet and COVID and all that kind of stuff. And it's not going to be science fiction. I hope it's going to be useful and pleasant.
Yeah. Definitely. So lots of exciting things in the future too, available soon.
Sure.
So yeah, well, thank you, all three of you. I just want to comment real quick. I noticed a couple of people in the chat asking, how can we access this video later? This recording will be uploaded to YouTube after our event concludes today. So either today or in the next few days, it will be available. And if you ever have any other questions about viewing this on YouTube later, or anything about Atmosphere's process, definitely feel free to send us an email at publicity@atmospherepress.com. Otherwise, I just want to say again, it was so wonderful to hear all three of your books, in your own voices as the authors. So thank you so much to Nat, to Brian, and to Paul for your generosity today with your words, your thoughts, your perspectives. Really diverse books, but always, I think, really rewarding just to hear from all these different perspectives in the publishing world. So thank you to you. And of course, thank you to everyone in the audience for being here with us to celebrate these incredible writers. Don't forget that you can order Phoebe and Fred, Lilah Loves Life, and My Days with Emma from the links that I'm dropping in the chat. And please also consider checking out atmospherepress.com to browse our new and forthcoming releases, to sign up for our email newsletter, or to submit a book manuscript of your own. You can feel free to submit your work to books@atmospherepress.com and let us know that you attended today's event. We
And
look
could I
forward to
add
hearing
something?
from you. Oh, go right ahead, Nat. Yeah.
I just want to say I'm very impressed by the job that you and Atmosphere and all the others have done to bring this together. Most of us have not operated in such an environment, and it's worked extremely well. You set us up beautifully. You answered questions well. The technique is working, and my Basset Hound Gus says that he enjoyed watching everybody on the different screens. Didn't you, Gus? Right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Nat. And again, really, thank you to everyone. And we'll look forward to hearing from you. But other than that, have a great weekend.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to you as well, Hala, and thank you, Nat and Paul.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.